Hey, this is Sabrina, Monarch of Monarch Astrology and Magic of the Spheres podcast. I'm going to be talking to you about the new moon in Taurus that's happening April 27th, 2025. And I am titling the new moon and this transmission more specifically about it, Leaving the Casino to Find the Real Treasure. So if you want to know what I mean by that, stick around and we will unpack it. So let me show you the chart of this new moon. The time is set to New York, so ignore the house placements. It is just a local chart, but we have April 27th, 3:31 p.m. Eastern Time. This new moon is in 7 degrees of Taurus, and it is forming a T-square to that final Mars-Pluto opposition. So we've had 3 of them because of the Mars retrograde, and this is the last one. And at the moment of the new moon, it has already been exact, this opposition, and the new moon is separating from squares to both of those planets. So that means that there has been some tension building up, and that the new moon is a new beginning after the tension has passed its peak. And the tension that I'm looking at when I see this Pluto and Aquarius opposite Mars and Leo are the ways that we gamify our needs, that we gamify our desires for our reflection of worth. Taurus is about the pleasures in life and our essential needs, and that T square to Pluto Mars just kind of brings up to me slot games at the casino, quick dopamine hits. These different ways that we get fixated on the game, right? So this could be in courtship or pickup art or how we relate to people or how we relate to clicks and validation on social media, wherever we kind of get those gameplays in our nervous system about how to get the hit of the thing that feels nourishing, and how that is pointing to a real need or a real desire, but there can be a deeper way of going about it. So that's my high level view, and I'm going to unpack it now. I just want to also remind you that there's just days left to apply for the upcoming Evolutionary Astrology Intensive. This is my signature program. I've been teaching for 8 years, and it's actually the last time I'm teaching it with a live cohort before it turns into more of a self-study experience. So if you're wanting to study live in a group 5 months, learn evolutionary astrology, this soul-based lineage of astrology, learn how to have astrology for yourself as something you are fluent and rooted in, then find the link in the show notes for the Evolutionary Astrology Intensive, learn all about it and apply. I know some of you have been eyeing this course for a while, so this is your last time to jump in for a live cohort. Some of you have written me that you're like, cool, I can't wait to see what next form it is, that you prefer the self-study. But for those of you that want to learn in a live container, meeting weekly for 5 months and getting to practice astrological fluency with your voice in a group, now is the time to join. So let's get back to the new moon transmission. So again, there have been some pressures coming up lately, and they are of the form, possibly, of wanting to feel special, important, validated, loved, reflected in your value. And those desires are completely normal and valid. But I think that when they start to come up in a itchy, scratchy, how can I get the hit of this? Or why aren't people paying attention to what I'm putting out there? Why am I not being reflected for how gorgeous and special I am? That we're kind of in this struggle with something that feels really basic or really essential. And this can point us back to how we are relating to our needs, how we are relating to what is at a simpler level. And it can be very easy to kind of reach very far outside of that basic need and try to find something to compensate with. And then we get kind of looped into these patterns. So let's just bring it back down to Taurus. And I will be reading from what I wrote about this new moon. I am sending at times, most times I make videos, there's a written version of it that you can get if you sign up for my mailing list because I don't post it on the internet. I don't really blog anymore. So if you want to get the written versions, sign up for my mailing list. Or if you want to be in touch in general, sign up for my mailing list. While I'm already telling you these things, please do like this video. Subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell so that you know when new videos come out. Those behaviors, by the way, when you like this video or you leave a comment, not only do I get to connect with you, I love reading your comments and hearing what lands for you, but it does affect the algorithm and who gets to see these videos. And so I'm going to be talking very self-consciously about these kind of games on social media and whatnot. So that is one game that I'm playing. But for me, the reason behind it is that it connects me with people that actually get to see this video or that I might end up working with. So it is a really supportive way to engage this channel. And maybe actually how you found this channel is because other people did that. So do like this video, leave a comment so I can connect with you. Back to Taurus. Take a moment here. With the Taurus archetype, we are working with the crucial development of self-worth. This is a foundational relationship with ourselves that sets us up for love with others and well-being in life, right? The parts of yourself that you learn how to relate to and love as opposed to dismissing or degrading or just totally putting into shadow increases your capacity to understand and connect with others. Right? If there's some part of yourself that you don't give any permission, that you just shame, you're probably going to have a hard time giving permission to that part of other people. So what we judge in others, what we find aversion in others can reflect our actual values and standards and whatnot. And sometimes it's also a reflection of the places that we have not been able to connect with ourselves. So it can sound very simple or basic to talk about this idea of self-love, right? And I want to highlight that it's oddly esoteric, the path of self-love. It's like going on a treasure hunt to find this missing jewel that was always there, but kind of hidden or obscured, and we had to rediscover our ability to access it. Self-love is oddly esoteric in the sense that our external reality actually changes when we change from within, right? Like the whole hologram of the reality changes when you have an internal shift. And that a lot of the things that we're out there trying to get, trying to chase, trying to hunt, right, can actually just come to us when we are operating from a resonant frequency. Self-love is oddly esoteric in the way that we so often try to outsource it to obtain that feeling state through the others that we value so deeply, right? And that we feel special through the reflection of them being in our lives, which is also so valid, right? But it can get imbalanced if we aren't rooted in ourselves and that we're totally outsourcing onto these like special others. Relationship is very important, relationship with others, but in the places we lack self-love or the willingness to cultivate it, we may try to recruit others to be the source for us. And when we do that, things get weird or we kind of fail at that ultimately, which can validate this maybe pre-existing scarcity or wound around worthiness. So Taurus is really a remembrance that we are love and that it is the assignment, Taurus, to be appropriately self-possessed so that we can love from a place of resource, right? So that we're less consumed with getting and having, and we're so much more present and receptive to what we already have. This is a very magnetic, kind of esoteric principle of Taurus that when we tune in to like actually cultivating a real state of gratitude, not like an egoic mental concept of gratitude, but when you really feel presence of just like loving where you are, loving what you currently have, your blessings tend to magnify because you enter a state where you are in deeper relationship with what is, so more becomes available. I want to say, it's not that we're only worthy of love, of relational love with others. Once we reach some kind of marker of resource or achievement or good enoughness. And this is a social argument or social conversation as well, when people have philosophies on who's ready to be in a relationship and who needs to still, get their finances ready or work on themselves. These might be personal preferences as well, of like what level a person is at in which you would actually want to enter a deeper partnership with. So that layer is there. And at the same time, it doesn't really work, the self-love thing, to just kind of delay it to like, once you get these gold stars of these particular achievements, then you unlock the self-love and you get to feel it. Part of the inner crucible of self-love is learning how to relate to where we are, even if where we are is not something that we readily accept. And so when we play this game of trying to unlock achievements in order to feel a certain way, to then approve of ourselves, we remain kind of locked outside of our own love, locked outside of our own hearts. So it's the gentle presence and attunement of loving ourselves inside of our dysfunctions, inside of our problems, inside of, where we're learning to not be ashamed. And that gentleness and that care applied to those places is a sturdier foundation for moving into these upper realms of thriving and, living in ways that we feel, more celebratory or aligned of. So I want to shout out Jonathan Coe and Daje the Story Doula this week for their shares this last week have influenced me and certainly influenced this transmission. Jonathan published a podcast episode called Untangling the Tyranny of Proving Your Worth. And Daje made a post reminding people to powerfully mind their own business as opposed to clout chasing. I'm going to leave the links to both of those posts, or the podcast and the post, in the notes. So the Mars-Pluto opposition, we have Mars in Leo and Pluto in Aquarius, could be bringing our self-concept, right, this Taurus season, new moon in Taurus, into a frictional conversation with validation, Leo, and social clout, Aquarius. And also the empowerment or disempowerment in relationship to networks and social networks as a Pluto and Aquarius theme. I noticed more posts than usual lately on social media critiquing clout chasing or online performativeness, right? That is, of course, an ongoing conversation, but I noticed it spike recently. And I also noticed I became aware of like my deeper reflections on how I want to be on the internet. And I was noticing when I saw posts that were improving my life. There's this one Kabbalah teacher, Kabbalah, how am I saying it? On Instagram, David Guillaume, who he will post these kind of spiritual insights with advice on how to pray, or like, here's a mantra for you. And as I've applied some of his advice, I have had huge internal healing spiritual breakthroughs. And I'm so deeply grateful for that. Like, it has really impacted me. Versus, I notice when I find posts that spark my envy, lifestyle envy, right? Like maybe someone having it together, things being cool in a way that like, oh, I wish I had that. And I notice it kind of trigger my own scheming game brain of like, how can I dress like that or be like that. And thinking about like, if I won that game, like if I started to like get higher up in that game, would I want to be creating content that creates that kind of like envy lifestyle cycle in other people? Like probably not, you know? And I was thinking about that, like having a moment of presence with that. A variety of synchronicities or messages had come up in divination. And so I was having this moment of pause around these social phenomenons on the internet. So something I came to around it to offer, especially as I noticed that it was connected to this Mars-Pluto opposition, is this. The validation that one can find through the most superficial means, social media metrics, rewards, right? Like getting awards or getting, winning in some kind of public social network, whether it's on social media or like a career industry or something like that. Performance reports, even also like romantic games, right? Like the pickup artist, figuring out how to game the female psyche and, get her intimacy or excitement or something like that. And it's this like gamified version of things, whether it's social media, courtship, but kind of like getting these reflections or these hits of like, I'm fabulous, I'm winning. Things of this nature. It mimics a karmic or synchronistic matrix that exists in nature, but it's kind of a lesser or more superficial, artificial version of it. So follow me. What I mean is that when we really tune into being, creating, and sharing love, being in service, right? Like tapping into what it is that you have to offer and give and like letting that really flow through you and into the reality, making inspired, creative, and relational choices, like engaging the network of life, relating to our interactions from a place of intrinsic worth and generosity and self-respect and self-possession. The ripple effect of these actions will return to us in some way. And it returns to us in many different ways. It might be good fortune. It might be a pathway opening up for us. It might be a sequence of events that leads to meeting an important person who's very influential or healing in our lives. It could be a pleasant interaction in passing or an experience with an animal totem. It could be a flux of money or resource into your life. So that matrix or that web of receiving the ripple effect of your actions is mirrored in a way with like getting likes or going viral or something on the internet, for example. That game mirrors something. We can naturally have esteem in the grace in which we are living our lives and the fruits that come of it. Of course, the journey of learning what we think is so valuable that we can devote ourselves to these values is sometimes like an ongoing learning or a trial and error process. If we get quiet enough with ourselves, we can feel whether we truly feel receptive and in harmony with ourselves and our lives or not. Right? This is a Taurus, like Taurus season is an invitation to slow down and feel into, am I harmonizing with my life or not? And I suspect that many times when we're not feeling harmonic with our lives, that some of our behaviors and actions that we're taking appear to be the right things on paper, but there's something missing in terms of our relationship or our feeling state with it. Right? Like if you just have a mental concept of how to be a good person, how to show up for people in your life, and you're, doing good deeds and being in service and being selfless or something like that. But if you feel yourself just kind of going through the motions and you haven't checked in with your deeper relationship with all of that, then maybe you're getting applause, or maybe you're getting results of people being like, thank you, or people, their lives benefiting from what you're doing. But there's a sense of disconnection. And it may be that if you connect back to what your deeper intentions are and how you really want to be participating, that your actions might only shift a little bit. That it's not that you have to full on have this like whole other life or something like that. But the orientation, the inner relationship from which we are approaching these things could be very different. Right? So if we're not feeling harmonized with our pursuits and how we're showing up to life, why not? And what is the deeper thing that wants to shift? So the superficial clout chasing or amount of likes on the internet, going viral, hitting some kind of jackpot at the casino of dopamine, or looking for that. This is a form of noise and static right now. And it's one that we often turn to as a supplement when we feel undernourished. It's very easy to become a junkie for the game of being rewarded, whether it's, you know, beginning to craft an image for the likes and virality, or putting on a performance of being being a kind of person because we get applause for it. And also romantic courtship games. People say, like, I don't want to play games, or no more games. And they're talking about this kind of energy where it's like gaming how to get responses from others by putting on an affect or a performance to get a certain result in relationship, and how that hits some dopamine receptors, possibly. It's like, ooh, I'm winning the game. I'm getting people to like me. But there's an inauthenticity or a lack of intimacy at a deeper level that begins to make it feel hollow and creates, an addiction loop with it, because you're looking for that high, but ultimately the addictive behavior won't fully satisfy. I love it when a rhyme comes out. um, so we often only begin to question this, if we have like sometimes just a deeper desire for value emerges. That could be like a seed of the new moon of like, I actually want more, and not more in the form of, you know, more activity at the casino, but more deeper fulfillment. I want to feel meaning and purpose and connection. But we might also begin to question this casino behavior when either the applause disappears and it seems like no one is paying attention to us, right? Like getting upset because people aren't paying attention to what you're putting out on the internet and you tried so hard. Or when our wins start to feel hollow, or like we achieved the look, but we don't have the feeling that we thought was supposed to go along with the look. When this happens, it's actually a spiritual blessing in disguise, because we have the opportunity to pivot and find the real thing again, and not just be lost in the game that we were getting so attached to. Right? It kind of has the energy too of maybe like the mass amounts of attention that happen inside of celebrity culture, and how it can be a real intoxicant or a high. And then there's this deeper questioning of like, well, who do I really want to be? Or like, what really fulfills me? As opposed to just getting like high off of the lifestyle, and looking for the next party or the next validation to keep feeding this God-sized hole, right? And so sometimes we do actually unlock because you can be on either side of this game where you're like fiending and kind of hungering and hunting for that state. So you're trying to earn it. You're trying to get to the place where you're getting that kind of validation, or you're like way on the other side of the spectrum where people are like kissing the ground that you walk on kind of vibe, and you've won that kind of validation game, but now is the question of not being intoxicated by it and not getting lost in that, if that makes sense. This could be, or, this new moon could be a beautiful checkpoint to come back home to our values if we strayed from them at all in the dopamine chase and bright lights of the casino environment. I'm speaking metaphorically here. This casino environment that jacked our nervous systems a little bit with the reward and gameplay. I don't just mean social media. That's one of the most common examples of this. It could be the pickup artist or sex addiction based on validation hits, but feeling, this lack of connection. It could be career addiction. It could be the obsession with being liked, and so on. It's wherever we get so plugged into a game dynamic, fixated on a game dynamic, that we forget why we do this thing in the first place, or that we need so much of the rewards and the stimulus to feel alive, or so much attention to feel like we exist and that we matter. So, on the other hand, I'm not advocating for a simple life drinking tea in a mildly minimalistic, decorated environment. There may be ways that our appetites and their extravagances are valid, or that we have been unlocking truer needs for ourselves, such as feeling deeply seen, cherished, and celebrated, or feeling your partner so thrilled and delighted with spending time with you and receiving you. That can be such a big experience. And for some, it's also a basic standard, actually really liking each other and having the relational skills to keep that going and deepening over time. I do think that the flood of paparazzi camera lights or the trillions of likes on social media are imitating, or reflecting a sincere desire for celebration, wowness, and awe in our full splendor. There are just possibly more real ways to feel that. And we're realizing that these things are connected to greater authentic channels and pathways that require our cultivation, Taurus, and not just quick coin slot gameplay. And so, again, this idea that these systems and these games are abstractions of reality in some sense, and that if you are plugged into your self-possession of your intrinsic self-worth and you are creating and playing with life and engaging life from that place, you will create a ripple effect and receive reflections from life and the fruits of your life in the actual real life field of your experience that aren't just these particular games of social media presence or clout chasing or getting the girl or what have you, right? This distinction between an actual like energetic life matrix of fruit and reflection of who you are versus these gamified channels of like, oh, if I just show up this way on social media, I can get, this kind of result. Or if I just bring this affect into my dating life, I can get people around me to feel this way, right? Like just dialing that back to a deeper self-possession and authenticity and pulling back our nervous system from the junky casino like greed that is very possible in those types of environments that have an addictive quality to them. In some way or another, the Taurus new moon is an invitation back to basics or back to essentials, a deeper harmonizing with value. It could be a remembrance of our own inherent worth and relaxing deeper into that in a way that could also inspire us to live differently than we do when we forget our worth and are trying to earn it. And I want to say too that, like, I think that sometimes the idea of not having to earn worth is really repelling to parts of ourself that recognize like rarefied privileges that happen when you unlock certain things, right? Where it's like at an entry level, you might not have access to certain life experiences that you haven't, quote, earned. There is a reality that some things in life are earned. Intrinsic self-worth, the right to exist, personal worthiness, something deeply essential. These things are not earned. They just are, and they just are remembered. And love, right? When we have a conditional love toward ourselves, that we only love ourselves when we earn it in particular ways, that puts us in a much different reality matrix and relational field with life than when we remember this essential jewel in our hearts that is like already love. And we approach our endeavors and how we're participating with life with that intrinsic worthiness. So I think, again, people find the idea of loving where you are repelling because it seems to mean complacency. And it doesn't have to. It's literally just extending love more unconditionally to yourself. You might still aspire to do something greater with your life or to refine your skills and talents. Self-love does not equal complacency. This new moon could also be pulling back our obsession or attachment with winning particular games or hitting the jackpot. You think of like the money eyes or like the money eye, money on the tongue emoji. And sincerely tuning into our deeper personal and spiritual intentions in our lives. Like, amazing that your appetite is on and that you're hungry, that you have desire. How can we get in alignment with something really valuable inside of that? Right? Because sometimes hunger and a big appetite feeds very well into addiction, but hunger and big appetite is also like life force, right? And life force is something that we can steward and really cultivate and be in deep relationship with. As we attune to what really matters at a deeper level and act in accordance with that, we might notice real life, gratifying moments, little winks from the universe in the form of synchronicity or just overall enjoyable, magical experiences, having what we need, good luck, making an authentic new connection, having a meaningful breakthrough. Like, you can experience fortune. And behold, the real original algorithm, natural law, be good to life, and life is good to you. This is a harmonic reality full of relationships and full of mirrors. So love yourself, right? It is an esoteric thing. It is not just basic. It is basic, it is essential, but it's so also a mystery. And one of the most powerful mysteries that we personally have access to is how we steward the love that we are. Thank you for tuning in to this message about the new moon. Please leave a comment, even just to say hello. And remember to check out the Evolutionary Astrology Intensive if this is your time to dive in and have astrological literacy. It is a language that opens up a greater interior life I think this is something we love about astrology is the way that it, opens our consciousness to contemplations that stir and kind of just like touch or pluck a certain heartstring in a way that creates like a ripple effect of realizations and openings in our relationship to ourselves and others and life. I've found it's a very ongoingly giving language, which is why I practice it and love to teach and share it. This particular way of studying astrology opens up a very deep conversation with the soul and the cosmos and can't help but to be a very deep, personally opening, interior expanding, life expanding journey. So I would love to have you join me. Please apply. Link is in the notes to learn more about the course and to apply. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to leave it here until I'm back next time.